All right, so last time we talked about the factors of growth, um, and today we're going to talk about some of the, if you will, the negative effects of the limits on their growth. A limiting factor is anything in a population that either causes the growth to decrease, it's still growing, but maybe not grows quickly, or in certain cases actually cause the population to decrease in numbers. All right, so we mentioned before limiting nutrients. So if a certain nutrient is only exists in a certain amount, that is going to ultimately limit how big a population is going to be. And beyond that, there's really two factors. We're called density dependent factors and density independent factors. All right, so we're going to focus first on the density dependent factors. And those are factors that only affect large populations. So we're talking about like a whole herd of buffalo, a whole forest of trees, you name it. You're not talking about like a couple birds on a branch. And these really come down to competition. So competition is far more prevalent in dense, large populations. And so what happens is individuals are competing perhaps for food or space or otherwise. And usually what happens is the loser has to emigrate, or in certain cases they just die off. But again, that's much more common in large populations. Parasite and disease is much more common in large populations. I have kids, and when they were home with my wife rather for maternity leave, they've always been healthy. Then you send them to preschool, and they get very sick very quick, a lot of cold and sniffles, because all of a sudden they're in a much larger population, and disease and sickness spreads very quickly in large populations. Think about school. You have a bug going around. It goes around a lot quicker when kids are in school than when they're home, kind of spread out. And then predation is much more common in large populations as well, or is much more of a driving factor in large populations. So this is a classic example that we see between predator and prey. So in my example, the prey is going to be the deer and the predator is going to be the wolf. Okay, the classic example. So we're going to start with the deer here and the wolf there. Now, very quickly, why is the wolf not above the deer? Now, if you remember when we talked about the ecological pyramids, the deer should outnumber the wolf. All right, there should be a lot more deer around than wolves, and that's good for the wolves. You don't want it the other way around. That would be bad for the wolves. A lot less food per wolf. So what we tend to see in any kind of predator-prey relationship is as the prey increases, all right, the predator begins to increase as well. But does anybody want to guess what happens next? So because all of a sudden there's a lot more predators around, that tends to drop the population of the prey. They're being overhunted. And because of that, soon thereafter, the predator population dropped off. All right, because all of a sudden they've overhunted the deer and they start to starve off. But as the wolves die off, the deer tend to rebound. All right, and as the deer rebound, so do the wolves. And then as the wolves rebound, the deer plummet again. And then guess what? The wolves plummet again. And this is something that ecological scientists see constantly in ecosystems, is this fluctuation back and forth of predator and prey and how they affect one another, how too many predators can cause a prey population to drop, but as they eventually the prey population drops, everything starts to rebound, or as the predator population drops, the prey rebound, and the predators follow in suit. It's this very tight relationship they see in all kinds of predator and prey in ecosystems, that sometimes the cycles can take seasons, sometimes it happens many times in one particular season, but this is something very common they see, especially in larger populations. Now, the density independent factors, these are factors that affect any size population. So not just small, they affect any size population. They really come down to two things. One are natural disasters, like volcanic eruptions or floods. All right, they're going to affect, a couple people, they're going to affect many people. So if you happen to be nearby any one of those, you will be affected. All right. Fires, being another example. And then the second primary type of density independent factor is human created factors. So deforestation, for instance, whether you're cutting a tree or multiple trees, you're having an effect on that respective population just the same. Or urbanization, building homes and such, whether you're taking out like 1 acre or you're taking out hundreds of acres, you're having the same effect on that area, on the respective areas.